thank you, Lord. Just ask that your perfect will be accomplished in this session, Father.
Tuesday evening, everybody. Chris McDonald is back in the house with you from South Dakota, and we want to send a salute. We'll talk about the South Dakota folks a little bit later, but hey, I'm back Tuesday night, back in the saddles. Got to break the cowboy hat out. We hadn't had this old guy on Zoom in so long. He's got I understand what Brad Johnson says. You got a face for radio, so I don't know what that meant. I'm not sure exactly what that meant. He says the same thing about me, but I can't repeat the other stuff he says about me, so I'll have to. He's going to be on Thursday night, so we'll take that up with him. Hey, Jeemes Akers, everybody. He's always a pleasure to have. We are so grateful to have my dear buddy. And my friend, it truly always is a pleasure. I've never had a show with you that we don't get just outstanding feedback. You've been a good friend. I'm looking forward to getting to see you this year sometime in person. But welcome back to the McFiles on a Tuesday night. Got a lot to talk about. Good to see you.
It's always good to be here with you, Chris. Enjoy it.
Oh, I enjoy it too. Hey, I want to, first of all, let me just say hello to all our audience out there tonight. Our X audience, Facebook, and YouTube. And anyway, let me do one thing here for Jeemes while we're talking. I do want to, I'm about to send this to your text, Jeemes, where we're the link to the show so your folks can watch. But I do want to ask you while I'm doing this, the big news today is the absolute disgusting display of this anti-Semitic hate and rhetoric that we're seeing in the country along these campuses. And I just wanted you to chime in on that a little bit. I know that I was watching something before we came on the show tonight, and I think it's out in California. I just sent that link to you. But the people in California were literally taking water. They were plastic, but still, and they were literally beating the police over the head with them, trying to break into City Hall. And it's like a pro-Hamas uprising in our nation. Columbia University had something go on this weekend. Yale, other schools. And it's not just isolated. Vanderbilt, of all places, here in my home state of Tennessee, we had some stuff that went on, not in my home state, but where I live. But, Jeemes, it's got to, when you see this kind of stuff, it's just plain rebellion, first of all. But why they're doing it is despicable. But I want to go beyond this, and this is another thing I want to talk with you about. You know, President Trump got excoriated back in 2018 when the Charlottesville riots took place. And he made a general comment that both sides were at fault. And I tend to believe that. And people, that was when he got labeled a white supremacist and a racist and a KKK sympathizer. Well, they asked Joe Biden Sunday morning, they said, are you upset, are you opposed to the anti-Semitic responses out there and the anti-Semitic marches that are going on in the country? Well, Joe Biden, in typical Joe Biden fashion, he says, well, I'm against that, but I'm also against people who don't understand the plight of the Palestinians, which I thought was a disgusting response. It was a disgusting response, because I'm going to tell our audience tonight, and this South Dakota air has gotten to me, so I'm a little fired up. That's why I got the cowboy hat on tonight. If these Palestinians are so upset with the plight, they can carry their carcasses back to Jordan, because that's where their home state is. That's actually where their Palestinian state once was before they fomented terrorism and got their carcasses kicked out. So if they don't like the Shangri-La and the Gaza run and the Hamas run Gaza and the PLO Fatah run West Bank, well, I'll tell you what, pack your bags, go back to where you came from. Guess what? It's not Israel's job to provide the Holiday Inn in your terrorist-infested territories. But Joe Biden's disgusting comment lets me know he's no friend of Israel. All right, that's my opening salvo. Chris is going to zip it up. What's this, Jeemes Akers? And get me out of trouble.
No, I agree with you. It just turns your stomach to see what's going on Columbia, you know, some of these Ivy League campuses, MIT, as well as several of these places, which are always, you know, beds of discontent anyhow. We sort of give college students a pass that they're allowed to embrace just ridiculous causes. You know, here you have minorities on all of these campuses that have absolutely cowed the others, students on campus, so that anytime they express an opposite opinion, you know, they come under not only verbal but physical attack. It is crazy what's going on college campuses. Here's Jeemes Akers' theory for what it's worth. After the Vietnam War, a lot of those people that refused to go and served their country in Vietnam, got an educational exemption, and became instructors on college campuses. And you had a whole wave of far left, neo-Marxist, anti-establishment
right.
college professors that got tenure. They're deeply rooted in these campuses. Their whole mission is not to teach kids critical thinking,
So true,
but
James.
to influence them with their own narrative.
That's exactly
These kids absorb it. They're at that age where they take on different ideas and make them their own, because it's they're away from mom and dad, and they want to prove themselves, not to like the authoritarian lifestyle, and it has just becomes a giant furball. And now what we're seeing is a few well-orchestrated and well-funded. There are a number of articles now that are coming out. Who's the money behind all of these pro-Hamas demonstrations around the country? And it's the usual selection of leftist organizations, Soros-funded organizations. Pardon me, and we are just seeing, college campuses across the country. Some of the presidents are making a stand. They've invited the police onto campus to restore order, but this thing could get out of hand very quickly if people in authority and boards that control these institutions don't step up to the plate and start to legislate and enact some common sense measures. That's my take for Wesley.
I think it's wonderful, and I got to ask you a question. I heard something really strange tonight, and I wasn't aware of this, but they said that the makeup of these groups is about 70-30 women. And I'm not wanting you to play psychologist, as Jesse Waters was trying to do with somebody tonight, because I'm not a shrink either. But it makes you shake your head while women would be embracing an organization that does nothing but rape women. And I want to just go on record tonight to say that when Joe Biden says that there's both sides in this, that he understands. Let me tell you something, James, it ain't the Jews out there raping women. The Jews are not out there cutting the heads off of babies and putting babies in ovens and raping the elderly. It wasn't the Jewish people. It was not Israel that did that to the Gazans or the Hamas and the Palestinians on October the 7th of 2023. And why would women who, unless it's just ignorance, blindness, or a combination of both, or they just, I don't even have an answer for this. But if there's a religion on the earth that treats women with more disgust and less respect and with vileness, you cannot find it other than Islam. That backs this play, that backs this group. This is what they're controlled by, the spirit. The whole Muslim world treats women like this. But yet, when I saw that figure tonight, I was like, you have got to be joking me. I mean, 65 to 70%, when you look at these crowds that they're dispersing and putting in jail on college campuses, it ain't the guys as much, it's the women. Why do you think drives that? I mean, again, I'm not asking you to play shrink here, but I'm just curious, if you heard something like that, what would be your take as to why they would even do that?
Well, I have more questions than explanations for the phenomenon. The same applies to the sports world, by the way.
Exactly right.
In sports, all of these women for all of these years fought, and I have two daughters, so I'm all for women's rights. But they fought to have equality in sports, and now you have these transgenders and others that are coming in and making a mockery of what they fought for, and they do not say a word. Where are all the women's rights advocates of years ago that fought so hard for women's rights, and now because of of political agendas. They refuse to say a word against the religion that, you're absolutely right, treats women as objects and slaves rather than human beings. And every time you have you can look at Afghanistan, you can look at Saudi Arabia, it just boggles the mind.
Oh, it boggles the mind. And I tell you something else, James. And again, this I'm not using any word. This is not to disparage homosexuals, but you have seen the signs, and I have too. It's all over the internet. It's all over X. Queers for Palestine, and they don't understand, James, that homosexuality in the Muslim world is outlawed to the point that if they caught an individual of that persuasion, they cut his head off. They cut their heads off. They would hang them in the public square, and it would not be a good end. But yet they march for that group. And I think the transgender thing with the women is an excellent comparison, because you would think that women would be very upset that a man is basically performing as a woman. And look, we've had athletes die in some of these instances. We've had them hurt, maimed for life when a man comes up into these contact sports, and so forth. And it has gotten so disgusting. But let me ask you this. You mentioned the college presidents. Do you think that it's sort of too little too late? Do you think that they let this cat out of the bag? They didn't clamp down on this stuff early enough, and now they've got a Pandora's box they can't close? Do you think they could have done any more? Do you think they've done just enough? As you said, it sort of depends on the campus.
It depends on the president. I had the really good fortune of being a visiting professor for several years at the College of the Ozarks. Dr. Jerry Davis established a culture on that campus that promoted patriotism, Christian values, and a work ethic. And you do not see that anywhere on these large state-funded campuses these days. And so my opinion is it depends on the leadership. And it looks like they have been late to the party. They're trying to stuff a genie back into the bottle. You have all of these kids with all their hormones racing ahead. Right. They're bent on revolution and any sort of change that they can usher in. And now you're going to try to have them. I mean, there are talks today. I read several articles, Chris, about several of them are fearful of holding ordinary graduation ceremonies because they fear protests are going to ruin everything. What have we come to? There is no sense of order. It is lawlessness everywhere you look, and it goes right to the leadership. And you mentioned Joe Biden refusing to take a stand, and the judges, if you look at Scripture, if you go back into the Old Testament, there was a time in Israel when the judges had become so out of control that it was literally impossible or unthinkable.
That's right, buddy.
For parents of young boys to allow their kids around judges because of the sexual immorality of the judges. And we are seeing that today. There is judgment going to follow on these judges that instead of taking an oath to the law, treat their courtroom as political agendas to draw attention to themselves. And I think we are going to pay a price as a country because our judges are, and this is someone with a law degree speaking, that the judges are just totally out of control, and it's going to have repercussions on this culture and this society, and we're just starting to see the ripple effects of all that.
This is sort of a weird question, but I am curious what you think about it. Passover began roughly probably about 8 hours ago, our time, noontime today, Israel's sundown tonight. Do you think these attacks revved up because of that, or do you? Because it's really weird. I'm not saying it had totally gone away, but it's sort of calmed down a little bit over the last 2 weeks. But man, this weekend, it's just like a light was lit on this fuse of these protests and this Hamas uprising. And is it an Arab thing that they target these feast days, and it just seems like maybe the enemy's dandruff gets up a little bit more around him? Do you think there's any spiritual significance in that, or do you think it was just coincidence maybe that these college campus protests go up? And I will say this, you mentioned about the danger thing of lawlessness and the graduation. That's another thing that I was just appalled at. There was a rabbi, and I think it was at Columbia.
It was at Columbia.
Where she came out and told the Jewish people, don't act Jewish. In other words, don't come out, don't wear your Jewish garb. And Jeemes, that's 1938 Germany, buddy, because the Jews were so scared of their life, they couldn't walk down the street without getting killed. They hid their identity from Hitler, and that's one of the reasons Hitler put that hideous golden star on all their clothing, so that Germany they'd have a bullseye on them. It was said Jude, which was short for Judah. And it was an insult to Christ when they did it. It was an insult to the Jewish people, the race itself. But do you think that this weekend, when all of this exploded, was Passover related, and maybe it will go away in a few days? Or do you think this is the beginning of a trend that we better be very careful of? Because these pro-Hamas protests may not be in your city and my city tonight, but I got a gut feeling that this is just the beginning. It's going to get beyond the college campuses soon. And because we had the Golden Gate Bridge blocked, we had New York City blocked. What was the other place? Chicago's O'Hare Airport, of all places, was shut down because of this. I mean, this is a growing uprising, a rebellion in this country. And Jeemes, I don't think we're ready to handle it. I'm not so sure these cities know what's about to hit them.
No, I would agree with that. I think it's only the beginning. I see sort of spiritual overtones to a lot that's going on, and so the Passover feast and celebration, is a time we're seeing calm in basically in the Middle East everywhere, but with Hezbollah.
So true.
There has been a constant back and forth with Hezbollah, to the point that the Israeli commander came out and say, even though it is a holiday, we are still vigilant on the northern border, and we're going to respond to anything that Hezbollah does. But the idea that you can block streets, can block bridges. As a student of history, I used to teach a course called 1979 in the Middle East. And you can trace almost every modern day development that takes place in the Middle East back to the year 1979.
Sure can. Iranian Revolution.
If you're a student of history, Jordan flirted with the Palestinians. Hamas and the rest of them gave them open sanctuary. And what did they do? They rose up and tried to assassinate the monarch. And they ended up in a really bloody war, kicking them out of the country. And you see that Hamas is in a couple of the Gulf states where they've been given shown the exit ramp, and the only one really now that's hosting them openly is Turkey. And that's an interesting development right there in Turkey. But these folks bless their hearts, wherever they go, they cause problems. They won't settle and accommodate. They want to change things in a violent way. And if you do not kowtow to their agenda, they're going to figure out a way to get even with you. And we are just in the beginning of that. We have huge Muslim minorities in Dearborn, Michigan, in some places in Wisconsin. And, and Biden is catering to those large Muslim communities to get their votes in the election that's coming. And just pure politics is behind a lot of this. And it just smells bad to me.
Yeah. You mentioned Turkey. There was some development in the elections, and Erdogan was sort of shaken by some of the results. Do you see that nation going back a little bit to the right, more than an Islamic caliphate, or has it gone beyond a point of no return? That's a quick question, and we're going to go into something else. But what about Turkey? Do you see any changes massively coming to that? I know you're up on the Middle East and all, and I'm just curious because that would be a game changer, at least short term, for some of the dynamics of what's coming to Israel.
Yeah, the future political dynamics of Turkey are just absolutely fascinating to study. And Erdogan has been on top of the heap for a long time.
Yes, he has.
Because municipal elections in Istanbul and other cities, he did not fare so well. They have tried everything they can to suppress a very vigorous and growing right-wing movement that was making inroads into the universities and the military. And they have really clamped down on those. And whether there's a wave of dissatisfaction with Erdogan and it translates into moving Turkey, off of this pro-Muslim orientation back toward a pro-Western orientation, is a fascinating question that would take us about 5 sessions.
Well, we'll have you on for the next 5 weeks. We'll do a show a week on that. That might be a good series, the Jeemes and Chris show on Turkey. We need to get us a radio network to host this. We'd have a great hour. We'd be the best co-host in the world. We get Johnson on there too. Hey, that's interesting. But I do want to, maybe another show we'll delve more into Turkey. I do want to ask you. I sent you a text Thursday night. I was driving to South Dakota Thursday, and this thing exploded with Israel and Iran. Israel retaliated and took out the nuclear weapon. Now, there's not been any sort of response from Iran yet. Do you think that the two sides have shot their salvos? Iran attacked Israel with 300 dome missiles, or missiles that the dome got 99% of. A few fell into Israel, but not all. Israel sends their salvo. Do you think this ends this conflict or tension right now, or do you think there's something brewing that is? Look, I'm a cynic anyway, and the reason I'm concerned about this is not so much that I don't understand where Israel is in Bible prophecy, because I get it that the Middle East is about to look. The end time narrative is not good for the Middle East. It's just not. But I'm concerned about our nation, James, and how we are not doing the things we need to do in support of Israel. And Donald Trump, President Trump, he said it right today. It is a disgrace what's going on in this country. But he said something else that I hope people caught. And I've always been saying this. Joe Biden is no friend of Israel. And he never has been. I don't care what he's talking about out of this side of his mouth or the other side that he sits on. He's a liar when he says he supports Israel. Now, he may win the dress, and he may do some things that on the surface seems like he's supporting her. but he's no supporter of Israel. He's the de facto leader of this country right now. It don't bode well for us spiritually, politically, economically, and I'm just concerned about that aspect of this. But in the bigger scope of things, Israel and Iran, and you said you've got some information. You said you've done some deep dive into this, and you're welcome to share whatever you want to. But is this something that's just getting started, or do you think the two sides have had their little brush up and maybe things calm down?
You know, there are a couple ways of looking at this. I just wrote a missive called Iran's New Equation in the Middle East. That was the reason, or their explanation, their rationale for why they launched this attack. And before the UN, they said they were just defending themselves.
Yeah.
By launching the largest air assault in the Middle East.
I saw
350 some things, and only 7% of the ballistic missiles. A U.S. military report says 50% either exploded or didn't even get off the ground. So it was really a humiliation for Iran, because they had intended to hit Tel Aviv, a couple of air bases in the south of Israel, and they basically didn't do anything but the shrapnel injured a 7-year-old girl. And so that was the sum total of launching well over 100 ballistic missiles and all these drones and cruise missiles. They were all shot down over. Now, I have a good friend that has several close contacts in Israel, and he said that when he talked to them after the attack, they said nobody was hurt except for the accidental. He said, and what they're talking about in Israel, that this whole thing is all political theater.
Wow.
Is an interesting perspective. Iran declared victory the way they usually do, and so they're not going to pursue the matter after Israel, had a retaliation strike that was so scaled back.
It really was.
And it was almost insignificant because of direct pressure from the White House. And so, so that dynamic is going on. I think personally, after Passover, the two places to watch are Rafah. I think Israel is going to go back in and try to hit Hamas, what remains of the leadership in Gaza, very hard in Rafah. And then I think we need to keep our eyes on the northern border. Hezbollah has at least, in most estimates, 100,000 missiles, and they are far more modern and far more technologically capable than the missile barrage we saw from Iran. And that's a scary thought. And it's a scary thought for Israel and their planners, too.
But do you think, and I guess this is the elephant in the room, and this is the question I keep coming back to, if that takes place, because you had Joe Biden out there putting sanctions on the IDF this week. I mean, man, I'm telling you, it's just with friends that Israel has in the United States, she don't need any more enemies. I mean, and it's a mixed bag, because, again, he'll do that one day, come out the next day and give Israel some kind of aid, this hideous aid package. I'm just pukingly mad over what happened in the Congress over the weekend with Johnson and this Ukraine aid, that they shrouded Israel's aid in it. But that's another discussion. But it's like it's a mixed bag. You get this blather 1 minute, then you get him coming out sanctioning the IDF of all things the next. Does America have her back should Hezbollah attack? And would he do the same thing to Israel about Hezbollah that he's done with Hamas? That you got to show restraint. You don't need to attack her. You need to leave her don't kill these civilians. And James, you and I both know these people on the other side, they don't care about civilians. They will hide these hospitals. They'll hide behind these babies. They'll hide behind civilians. And it don't take a genius. It don't even take a kindergartner. I got a 5-year-old that if Papa Mac sit down, grandson, if Papa Mac sit down and put it on a piece of paper and drew in crayon that this is enemy and that's an enemy and this is you, and if that enemy does this to you and you go and you attack that enemy, who's the right one in this situation? My 5-year-old would understand what Papa Mac could draw in crayon. And I'm just wondering if I need to go to D.C. and sit down with Uncle Joe and draw this freaking picture in crayon with the Congress and with this White House as to what's going on in Israel and who the enemy is and who we don't need to be pushing and pressuring to worry about civilians. That's my Tuesday night. Anyway.
Well, move over on that soapbox. I'd like to join you up there on top of it. But let me bring up a couple points. We are both advocates of prophecy in Scripture, which the whole time clock was set when Israel became a nation. And so Scripture is really clear, the prophets, and Jesus, when he was talking in Matthew 24, Scripture is really clear that at the end of the day, Israel is going to be alone and have to depend on the Lord God.
Absolutely,
to defend it. That is in my opinion, that is the reason the United States is not mentioned anywhere in Scripture, because, we have a choice to make in this country. There is still the biblical admonition that for those that bless Israel will be blessed, those that curse Israel will be cursed. And that's a nationwide indictment. On the personal level, I sort of differ from a lot of my colleagues when they want to sort of give the Jewish people a pass, that they are going to have to acknowledge Jesus Christ. That, on a personal level, that's where the rubber hits the road right there. You have to have a relationship with Jesus Christ.
Absolutely.
And so there's this tension between those two viewpoints. But at the end of the day, Israel is going to have to depend on God. And he is more than anxious to show himself mighty on their behalf.
Without a doubt.
But I watch all of these developments, and it's like the pages of Scripture are just unfolding before our very eyes.
They are. But let me ask you this, devil's advocate moment. I get what you're saying with Israel. I'm with you, because we actually taught this all weekend up in South Dakota, because that's what our conferences are about, the end times, Israel's role in the last days. Where does this put America, though? Because, I get asked a lot of questions about end time prophecy and end time events. One of the greatest questions, as far as quantity of questions that I get about it, I get this asked the most. Where will America stand? Where does America stand? And you already brought it up beautifully. She's not mentioned in the Bible. She is absolutely not mentioned in the Bible. So if Israel stands alone and we're unwilling to help her, where does that put us? Because it concerns me that, is this sooner than later, or do you think that we're hastening the end of this republic? Again, we can't control what the White House does. We just can't. We can only pray for the peace of Jerusalem. We can pray for the sanity of Joe Biden. We can pray for the sanity of this government, which is a tall order right now. But we can't ultimately make them do anything they don't want to do. But I think it's a dangerous, dangerous road this administration's taken for the country, James, because see, their decisions in leadership affect us all. But let me carry this further, because I'm speaking into this camera tonight, these pastors out here. It's not just the White House. It's not just the White House that is out there spewing their anti-Jewish rhetoric and hate. It's a lot of these pastors in these churches and these so-called Christians. Because I've seen just as many Christian Telegram rooms and so-called Christian X accounts and Christian Facebook pages that have posted some of the most vile anti-Semitic rhetoric that you could ever post. And I'm more concerned about that than I ever would be about what this stupid government's going to do, because I don't trust this government past this screen. But you would think that at least the church, Jeemes, would stand up and have some common sense and understand what time we're living in history and prophecy, and say, you know, we need to pray for Israel. We can't even get the church to do it. What say you?
No, I'm with you on that. We can't get the American church to do a whole lot.
No, we sure can't.
Including standing up for the most basic God-given rights. You know, we've ventured from that. We have allowed the government to dismantle the middle class in the United States of America, which was the largest funder of Christian missionary activities around the world. And we have put ourselves in a position of judgment because of the sin of our leadership.
Yes. Yes.
And I'm not talking about solely inside the Beltway, but I'm talking about these city administrations, the judges, you know, have been a disgrace in terms of metering out the law according to God's holy writ, and thirdly, and I've said on this station before, Chris, when a country's leadership departs from God and in fact thumbs their nose in the face of God, which is what is happening right now, the land itself will vomit up the sin, and you're going to start to see one natural disaster in the United States after another. And it's a direct result of the preponderance of sin we have allowed to permeate in this culture, and the church is the direct reason why we're in the situation we are, because we have refused to take a stand on the truth of Jesus Christ in this culture.
And that vomiting up is not going to be HARP. I've got a reason for saying that, because you got people out there claiming that every time we have a weather phenomenon that man's controlling it. No, this is because what Jeemes just said. The earth is vomitingly sick of the sin and the wickedness and the perversion and the gross rebellion against God so much it is vomiting on itself. And that's why it's shaking like a leaf in a hurricane. And man ain't doing that, controlling that. Man's causing it by his rebellion and sin, because the earth itself, James, is tired of it. It's literally sick. And that's what Paul talked about in Romans 8 when he says we're travailing. This whole creation travails until, you know, and as we get closer to the coming of the Lord. Listen, we got about 10 minutes and 15. Let me just do a little house cleaning issue. Folks, if you got a question tonight, we want to welcome our Facebook audience, our X audience, and also our former Twitter. That's when I say X. I better clarify that. The Twitter audience, now X, but the YouTube audience. And we're grateful for you all. But if you got a question for Jeemes tonight, or a statement about the show, keep it on text, context. We'll ask him real quick. What's your thoughts about all this stuff going on in New York with Trump, with the it's the biggest travesty I've ever seen, man. I just don't see where we have. You mentioned the judges, and I want to sort of come back to that as we wrap this up tonight. Have you ever seen more a corrupt bunch sitting behind the bench on robes that you in the history of this nation, that our justice has been just trampled on, peed on, spit on, the Constitution thrown out the door. As you said, it's a political witch hunt every time we turn around. And what people don't get, Jeemes, is that even the people that hate Trump out there tonight, that they say, you say Donald Trump and they just go into hives. These liberal commentators that are gloating and bragging and jumping up and down, thinking this is just grand, what they're doing to him. What they don't get, because of the smog and the smoke between their ears, is that this same justice system will turn on them just as quick as night as day. And I'm going to tell you something. What's going on with Trump right now is coming and is in a danger to every single one of us, including the liberals that are rejoicing in this tonight. Because if they think that this is what normal justice looks like, payback is you know what, brother, and payback is coming. And they don't want to see a justice system run like a circus. But that's what they're opening a Pandora's box, and that genie is about to be let out, and it's going to be both sides. And we've lost our country if that happens, if this becomes like that. Correct?
I agree with you. We've become worse than a banana republic when it comes to using politics as a basis for bringing someone to trial. Can you imagine being a successful businessman in New York, and your political leanings are toward the Republican Party right now?
Oh my goodness, man!
All of this is setting it up for you to be brought to trial because of your political leanings. That, to me, I am,
yeah.
There are Donald Trump haters out there. I get it. But the whole idea that our whole judicial system is being compromised to enforce a political narrative is absolutely disgusting.
It is. It is. It is. And do you see any change of that? Do you see any hope that... I'll ask you just a blunt question about Trump. Does he have any recourse, any remedy with any of the courts to fix this? See, that's what I'm concerned about, that if they get away with this, and look, I know that most of even the liberal media today said that Bragg's case is falling apart. They're day 2 into this, and he looks like a buffoon. But I don't trust juries. I don't trust any jury right now that sits in any of these cases, James, because Trump just brings out the worst in people. I hate to say it. It's not his fault, but he just brings out the worst in people. And and I know that there are people on that jury, whether they want to admit it or not, they deep down want to just get get a punch in for the Gipper, and they're liberal leaning buddies. And that's not what justice is supposed to be about. So I don't think we better be jumping up and down for joy and think it's a shoo-in that he's going to walk in any of these. But if they get away with this, are we not sunk? And again, is there any remedy that you see that he can do? Because the appeals process is going to take months, weeks, and they know this. And I don't even know if the Supreme Court is even going to listen to most of this.
They are just trying to hamstring with law war. They are trying to hamstring Donald Trump, and I've got people in my family that hate Donald Trump, but they can still see what's going on with the guy, and it's pure political theater, and it's the only historical comparison really that makes any sense is the Stalinist show trials when all pretense of justice went out the window, so that they could render political judgments, and that is what's going on. And I believe with you, the victims in the long term will be on both sides of the political aisle, because you're going to have a judicial system so politicized that the outcome of the case is going to be decided by your politics going into the case. That is true. Not American justice, and we are seeing American justice being hijacked for political purposes right before our eyes, and Trump happens to be the victim.
He is.
Does he shoot himself in the foot? Yes.
Oh yeah, he does.
And I heard a pastor in California say something, and it was an indictment on the church. It says the two most hated words in the American vocabulary now are Donald Trump.
That's about the truth.
When it should be Jesus Christ, because
Come on,
and
that's a great point.
And
I do have a good question for you.
It just turns your stomach.
Yeah.
I don't have the eloquence to describe the churning that goes on in my stomach when I watch what's going on in this country these days.
I do have a good question for you. Sheila asked, but good to see you, friend. And it's actually an excellent question. Does Israel have any allies right now? I think her question is actually very good, because other than Jordan, and I wouldn't call Jordan Jordan's not outwardly attacking her. Saudi, I will say this about the Saudis. I don't trust them, but there was a report out that they helped Israel. When Iran was attacking Israel, the Saudis were giving Israel a play-by-play of some of the stuff that was going on, and they either gave her heads up or something, because the Saudis are no friends of the Iranians. And this Middle East is a little complicated, but does right now, on this Tuesday night, does Israel have anybody in her backyard that is not wanting to kill her?
One of the factors that prevails in the Middle East, that we in Washington constantly underestimate, is the vitriol and the depth of the Sunni-Shia divide.
That's right. That's right.
And so Israel, at the end of the day, if you read scripture, there, it'll be the Saudis and the Jordanians, the Sunnis, will not accept the Shias running, completely over the rest of the Middle East. And that is one of the few things that the Israelis can have a little bit of confidence in. If I was Israel, I sure wouldn't be trusting the United States or Western Europe right now.
I wouldn't either.
But I think they can place confidence in this divide between the Shia and the Sunni that has been several generations old and is not going to go away. In fact, that, more than anything else, more than American diplomacy, more than CENTCOM manipulation, it was the Sunni-Shia divide that we saw those Sunni nations come in and help defend Israel against that air attack from Iran.
It's a good point. Bill Donaldson's got a statement in a comment, but I'll just take the part that I really want to ask you about. This situation in our nation, do you buy the fact that, I got a mixed, Bill's comments fair, it's his opinion, and I understand where he's coming from. Is it fair to say that Christians don't vote the way we need to vote? That a lot of Christians actually vote for the very things they rail against? That they say they're believers, but yet they vote, the way they vote dictates a lot of time how they really feel, and by not voting, that they're shirking their God-given duty for the nation, and if they don't vote, they really have no right to complain. And I would say that about any citizen, Jeemes. If a citizen's out there tonight and they sit around on their carcass on voting day and they don't get out and get involved with their government, and look, I hate to tell these churches that claim God's into politics, God can't stand politics. Politics is the most dirty, ugly, toxic thing in the world. God does care about government. God is a God of government. He is a God of order, And Romans 13 is very clear that the reason we have government is to protect the citizens from evildoers, and those that execute the sword do not execute it in vain. But this lawless society has a lot to do with the laziness of believers that do not do their diligent duty in voting for the right thing. And that too seems to be a spiritual malaise that is very hard to get over in this nation, is it not?
I would agree with that absolutely. I loved the description this weekend that came out from a Roman Catholic. He was way up in their hierarchy, and he called Joe Biden a cafeteria Catholic. In other words, he picks and chooses what he wants to believe in, and the rest of it, he just ignores. I mean, to me, the crucial issue is the issue of life.
Yes.
Jesus Christ defined himself as the way, the truth, and the life. And we are losing, Christians are losing the battle for life in this country. And it's because they choose a route of convenience rather than a route of scriptural integrity.
So true. Gloria Garcia, Gloria, you didn't have to retract that. I was coming to you next. Her question, she asked it in the form of a question, but she said it's a statement. Does Israel know that there are many Christians who love and pray for her? And I would say the answer to that is yes and no. I think some Israelis do, but Jeemes, the problem is that a lot of the bigger churches, the big mega churches in this nation are anti-Semitic. And some of the louder voices that are out there don't pray for Israel. They get out there and support the Palestinians. And I think that when I was with some group, it was an event in Nashville I was at back in March, and I talked to a lot of Jewish people. There are some that do. There are some that understand that the Christian community, the true church, the true bodies of believers, the people that are not just Christians in name only, but they truly have the heart of Jesus. I think that they know that there are some. Now, whether it's a ton of people, I guess only God knows how many that number is. But do you think there is any hope that Israel feels anything coming from America of love? I tend to agree with what Gloria is saying, but I also tend to say that I would put a caveat on that to say that there's a lot of hate that they see as well. And I think they are sort of mixed on what they see coming from our country, the church, don't they?
Yeah, and a lot of it, is a reflection of the type of people you hang around. But a lot of the people that I listen to, are constantly going to Israel, and Israel caters to a Christian tourist industry that basically keeps them afloat. So there's that hard economics component of that answer. There are a ton of people in Israel that know that there's a huge movement, Christian movement in the United States that prays on a continual basis for the peace of Jerusalem and for the people of Israel.
Yeah, and I'm with you there. And I do believe there are quite a few true Christians that do, and maybe a lot of them may not be seen on the internet. And, because we might as well just go ahead and slay the elephant in the room. The internet and YouTube ain't the mirror of what's going on in the world, even though people may think it is. It's not. Look, there's a lot of things that go on that don't get on YouTube that are going on. And to be frank with you, a lot of the crap on YouTube is as vile and as toxic can be, and that's another discussion. A couple of statements from Facebook I want to share with you, and a question from Carol Smith. Carol Smith says this. She says, do you think because of worldwide persecution, an exodus of Jewish people is going to take place in Israel? And I think it's already happening. And it's funny, Jeemes, in 1989 when communism fell, that's one of the reasons the Lord took that Iron Curtain down. because the Jews
Yes.
were being persecuted so much in the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union had really put a clamp on immigration back to Jerusalem, and that mass exodus started happening really then. It's really been going on for 50 years in 1948 when they reformed the state. But her question is legitimate because there is a lot of persecution, even here in America. And I'm hearing that a lot of American Jews are getting concerned. Isn't this crazy? I mean, if you think about the irony of this, you would think that America would be the safest haven for Jews worldwide than any nation in the world. And it's becoming more dangerous that American Jews are packing up and saying, I'm going back home. I'm going back to Jerusalem. That's biblical times, brother. That's mind blowing, but it's prophetic and biblical.
Yes, I agree with you, Chris. We tend as Christians to underestimate how vile and how deceptive that spirit of anti-Semitism is. It completely blinded one of the most civilized countries in the world.
Yes, it did.
To the point that they were sending Jews to gas camps. And as the railroads went by with those cattle cars full of Jews, they turned their backs.
Exactly.
In the churches, they
sang
amped
louder.
up so they couldn't hear the cries of the Jews being sent to the gas camps. In the 1960s, there was a real interesting movement in this country, late 60s, early 70s, and there were a number of prophetic voices around the country that started telling people to prepare, like refuse, places of refuge for a coming Exodus-like diaspora of Jews around the world. And now that most of those people who were involved in that have long gray hair and maybe have forgotten the prophecy. But if the United States cannot be a haven for Jews around the world, then I don't know of any place that can.
I know.
outside of Israel. And if things get so difficult in Israel that they have to flee, where are they going to go to? Perhaps Australia or New Zealand, but for the most part, it's to the United States. And we have to have a culture that is not only inviting to Muslims from all over the world. I don't disagree with that. But we have to have a culture that is inviting to Jews in recognition. That's the only democracy in the Middle East right now.
You know,
they see things in terms of legal systems and everything else more in tune with us than any of the Muslim countries in the Middle East. I don't care how progressive they want to act. And so, that's...
Yeah. Couple of more...
I need to get down off that soapbox.
No, you're fine. No, I agree with that. I'm with you right there with you, brother. A couple of quick questions and statements. Corey Aguilar, good to see you tonight, dear, from Facebook. She says they're violating President Trump's First Amendment rights as well, and the left doesn't see this as dangerous. And Roger Hooker says that, Jeemes, what is your thoughts, if any, as to why our Heavenly Father allowed this administration at this time? That is a very complicated question, but I'll ask you, we can wrap it up on that one. I don't think anybody knows that answer, but that's just me. But do you have any thoughts about why all this was allowed in 2020 with Joe Biden?
I have and I used to teach this to my political science classes, Akers' first law of politics. America always gets what it deserves in a president. And so
said that this weekend.
Joe Biden is reflective of the downfall of the cultural values
Bingo.
in this country.
Go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Keep going. I said it this weekend. I said nations usually get the leaders they seek. When you get down to it, James, I don't care. And I know the Christians out there saying, "Oh, no, we didn't want him. We didn't want him." Are you sure? Because the leadership of the church sure didn't act like they wanted Trump, did they? Not everybody. There's not a lot. There was a lot of them that didn't. But anyway, that's another soapbox. But I'm with you on that, and I think it's a good question.
Let me try to wrap up that package with a bow here. If you study history, all the great empires, one of the reasons they collapse at the end is because there is an absolute dearth of leadership.
Absolutely.
And we are starting to see that on both sides of the aisle right now. It couldn't be clearer. If you're really honest about it, the bench is almost empty when it comes to leaders with integrity in the political process in this country.
I'm with you, buddy. Buddy, always such a good evening. I think we've got everybody's questions now. Lori, we got your question in there. Thank you for asking that. Pat Dolan says, how much do you think Biden is actually controlling Israel's actions? I'll answer that, Pat. He ain't controlling any of it. He thinks he is. I think Israel's basically thumbing their nose at him. Look, Netanyahu, that's his country. I'll just say this as we wrap it up, James. If I'm Benjamin Netanyahu, I know that Israel depends on America for a lot of things, but I would have a come to Jesus meeting with Joe Biden. And I would basically say, Joe, you've got enough problems at home. Keep your nose out of my business. I'm dealing with a terrorist organization in my backyard. Why don't you go back and deal with your crap nation and America's not a crap nation. But I would literally tell them, look, your nation is going in the toilet. You got enough stuff to clean up around your own door. And there's a little Bible nugget in that for all, that there's enough crap in your own door and in your own space that you don't have a business running this freaking pathetic garbage trap about anybody else. You better be cleaning up around your own house first. And I think that's what I would tell Joe Biden. That you got enough crap in America to deal with, don't you? Than to worry about what Israel's doing. And if you can't define terrorism, I'd ask Joe point blank. I said, Joe, define terrorism for me. And find out what he has to say about who's the terrorist here. I'd be interested in that myself. So Pat's question is legitimate, but no, I don't think he's controlling her actions. I think Israel's basically doing what she's got to do. And if she's not, shame on Israel, because she needs to. I'll let you wrap it up with the final thought.
Yeah, I have a quote in the latest missive, and it's from Netanyahu, and it says, "We appreciate." I'm just sort of giving you the bird's eye view. We appreciate the Western powers giving us advice and suggestions, but we are going to do what is best for Israel.
Exactly right, man. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. Man, you are always a joy to have. I wish there was a way we could have you on every night. I wish we could, but we can't. But listen, when you do come, you're always a light. You're always a bright force. And I always soak in a lot when you're here. And I'm going to give you a final 2-3 minutes, wrap us up your final thoughts, and we'll say goodnight. We'll have you back on soon. With the way the world is, we'll always have something to talk about, Akers, that's for sure. I mean, the world's going insane, so we'll always have something to discuss and never be boring, that's for sure. Wrap us up in our final thoughts, my friend.
My final thoughts are the same as they've been every time we've been together. We talk about all of these things, and they are at some points alarming and disconcerting. But the God of this universe is still in control. And he orchestrates the beginning from the end. And if you dedicate your life to Jesus Christ, you are in the right camp when it comes to the future.
It sure is, my friend.
God is not shaking on his throne. He has foreseen all of this.
Buddy, you couldn't have said it better. Listen, I'm going to say goodnight to these folks. I'll be in touch with you, and I will see you soon physically. We will get together like we talked about before the show. Such a pleasure. My best to your family. Much love and blessings to the Akers family, and we thank you so much for being with me tonight, and we'll see you soon.
The same right back at you. I can't wait for us to get together and solve all the problems.
Well, you know, I've been asked to run for president, so I've got all these people. I got James R. That's my defense secretary and press secretary. I guess you could be my VP, the Akers Mac, the Mac Akers ticket. That sounds pretty good. I put Tony Branco in as my publicist because he does all those cartoons for me. And let's see, Eric Karen could be my foreign correspondent to Iran because he knows all that.
And we'll give Brad free reign to look for Elvis.
Free reign to look for Elvis. I don't know what I would put Brad in charge of. I put him in front of back in front of the secret agencies. He'd clean that mess up in about 5 days. And Chris's first press conference to have to explain everything that Johnson did would be priceless. But hey, I do want to say this, and I'm saying this sort of as an announcement to the audience. I talked to Brad about this, and he's on board. I'd love to get you and him together one night soon on a panel. Yeah, let's do a panel. We'll talk about that maybe in a few weeks, okay? And we'll talk.
That sounds good.
James Akers, everybody, have a good night, my friend.
Blessings. Good night.
Put some fire in that house for James. God bless his heart. What a good man right there. And we're so grateful that you've been with us tonight. We won't keep you long because we've gone a little bit over. It's about an hour and 11 minutes. We started a little late. But we're grateful that you all are here tonight. We want to, again, thank you for the good questions that you had for Jeemes. And it was really good stuff. And we thank you for being with us tonight. And it's good to see a very hefty crowd. We had a rocking crowd, almost 300 folks tonight. That's awesome for a Tuesday night. And we don't take for granted anything these days. I can tell you we've never taken you for granted. And whenever you're here, it's much appreciated that you take your time out on a Tuesday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night, whenever we're on, to sit and listen to the McFiles. And our guest and our dear friend James Akers tonight was on fire, on target, on board, and very, very good. And you folks in Twitter, we had a record crowd there tonight as well. So good stuff tonight. I want to thank you all for being with us. Really, I could add a lot more to it, but I don't want to. I'll just leave it at this tonight. We're running a little late. We'll be back on here tomorrow morning, Faith Network, for the Bible study. Tomorrow night we'll have our Wednesday night Faith Fellowship. And then Thursday night, doubleheader night, we've got the one and only Brad Johnson at 7:30. And then Eric Karen will be back with me late. He had to do a late show with me Tuesday night. So we got them two guys. Cleo's going to be back. We got to schedule her. We're going to get Cleo on soon. And then we've got, because there's some things down under, we want to talk to her about Bishop Maury Emmanuel and some of the things that went down in Queensland. We're trying to get our schedule back in play since we got back from South Dakota. And but we got Marcia Montenegro coming next week. I know that. Carla Nicole coming, Culture of Life. Andy Griffin is sort of waiting in the works. Bill Federer will be back with me soon. We're going to have a brand new guest, Holly Pevick and Douglas Grisette. They're going to be together in a little panel. We got Christopher Hall coming as well. So we got a lot of great shows ahead for you for the next couple of weeks as we close out the month of April, and then we'll do it all again in May. We'll start right here in May. I want to take this opportunity tonight to say thank you to the people of South Dakota. Sioux Falls this past weekend was such a blessed time of fellowship. We had a wonderful Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday night session. The Sunday afternoon communion service was precious. Presence of God was there all weekend. And just the people, I fell in love with you up there. I really did. I'll be back. Planning on working out some things soon. We're going to have a conference sometime in May, in June somewhere. Jeemes was talking to me before the show. We're going to probably head north a little bit and then south and then go back up way, way north and out west. But I don't know where we're going to all wind up. We've got some cities in mind. We're working out the details on them. But we're coming to a city near you soon for these prophecy conferences. And we just appreciate your understanding when we go on these. We sometimes have to take some days off with travel and everything. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all those that were there participating. I want to give a special shout out tonight to Amy Miller and her family. They were such a blessing to us in many ways. Just words cannot express, Amy, my thanks to you for everything that you did and helped us do up there. And we're grateful that we were able to hubnub with your family and just get to know you guys. And yet they were precious. And the whole group of South Dakota, our folks in Minnesota came and joined in, and had some folks from Oklahoma come in. So it was just a grand weekend. And I want to give a tip of the hat to the folks in Sioux Falls. And we shall return, the Lord willing. The Lord willing. And we appreciate you guys being with us tonight. Listen, I'm going to let you go now. Did you enjoy Jeemes Akers? I hope you listened to what he had to say. Thank you all for the good questions. I'll see you in the morning. All my Bible students, Professor Mac will be in the house in the morning. Bring your notebook. Bring your Bible. Bring your Bible. I'll have the ruler handy. Apples in hand. Chalk in hand. And I'll throw an eraser at you if you fall asleep out there. But it won't hurt. It'll be a soft one. All right. Listen, I love you tonight. Thank you all. It's late. Have a good night, everybody. Be blessed. And one more time, did you love Jeemes Akers? Like I did. Put some fire in that house. And we will see you in the morning in the Faith Network. And then back here tomorrow night for our Wednesday night Bible study. And we may have a faith show. I'm not sure about that just yet. But we'll see how it plays out tomorrow. But for sure, we'll see you tomorrow night at 8 with our Wednesday night. Wednesday's Faith Day here on the network, and we'll have the Bible study tomorrow night. Listen, be blessed out there. Be safe. Good night. Before we say goodnight, folks, I almost forgot another important person to say thank you to, and that's Who's Your Warrior Coffee-.com, the McFilesChris or McFiles, not the, but McFiles. Support these folks in Indiana, folks. They help the McFiles. When you order coffee from them, their coffee is roasted, shipped, and placed to the website. Ensures the customers receive the freshest coffee in a portion of every sale using the link below. Or that QR code, if you can scan it on your phone on the screen, we'll lift it up where you can. Ensures that you receive that coffee. They're a combat veteran-owned coffee company in Brownsburg, Indiana. And our dear friend Natalie Corbin is head of this company and her family, and God bless them for helping us here at the McFiles. And we thank you all for those that help donate. But please support Who's Your Warrior Coffee, the best coffee in the entire universe, and they will help the McFiles. And thank you for that again. Just want to say one more time, happy Passover to all our Jewish friends tonight, this whole week. It lasts through Tuesday night next week, April the 30th. May you have a safe Passover wherever you're at in this country and the world tonight from the McFiles. Good night.